Hey guys, so here bringing you another video and welcome to patch 13.11 patch notes. So we're going to go over, obviously this is since the bigger mid-season update, and we're going to see, what's changing. And I will say I'm not feeling 100% at the moment, so if I'm not all kind of bouncy and like a lot, that's probably why. But I still wanted to do the patch note video for everybody. So we have nerfs, the overview, to Aurelion. That's not a surprise. He's like practically the only mage that feels kind of okay. Aurelion, a MooMoo, a Helios, and Jinx. And then we got buffs to Akali. The Azir ones, let's see what they are, but that's interesting. Ivan, Kalista, Reksai, a Renekton, and Twisted Fate. Obviously, it goes without saying, two of those champions, Reksai and Renekton, have directly kind of, if you will, got worse because Prowler's Claw's removal. Yes, obviously, a lot of these champions are buying Yumu's now, but that was over buffed like mad, and that is being adjusted this patch too. So that's why they're probably getting some buffs. Rel is getting, oh, Twisted Fate, I don't know if I mentioned him. Rel's getting a mid-scope update. We're getting item changes to pretty much all like the new or updated ones in the last patch. And then we've got the last year's Worlds winners, DRX. Their skins are coming out on June the 1st. So Rel's mid-scope, again, in patch note videos, I don't really go over like a mid-scope update because it won't do it justice. All I will say is the next Unranked to Diamond session, which I think actually will be tomorrow because this patch was delayed because of the American holiday on the weekend. I probably will just play a game of Rel. We'll probably play a game and then we can kind of really look into what has changed, what's not. So if you're looking for that, just wait till that video comes out. I have heard some people compare her new update, though, to basically being a mini Hecarim or Hecarim 2.0. So take that the way you will. Akali, Q-based damage decreased. Decreased? That's increased, my friend. So yeah, sometimes Riot, this, as you just saw, if you looked at the top, was released 6 minutes ago. They do sometimes fluff things, and it happens. So where that says decreased, that should say increased, because as you can clearly see, it's an increase, not a decrease. So just base damage is going up. To be fair, I haven't seen much Akali in the last few weeks, so does she need a buff? Potentially. Yes, Akali's kit is strong, so when she is on the stronger side of balance, she a lot of the time is played all the time, but I've not seen one in a while, so fair enough. A MooMoo, yeah, definitely strong in his own right, and I do think the main problem with a MooMoo, because they've actually had quite a, if you notice, he's been appearing in a lot of patch notes. He's appeared in a lot of patch notes since they gave his Q 2 stacks. I do think potentially they need to get rid of that. It is just so strong because CC chains is a very powerful tool in League, and when one champion can do a continuous CC chain, it's just not very healthy. And a MooMoo, I believe, if he lands a Q, ults, lands a Q, it's roughly 4 seconds of like constant CC. That's a lot, like a lot of CC. So potentially they might have to eventually just get rid of that. Obviously, it is worth saying that, like other champions, MooMoo was one of the champs that benefited from the demonic embrace and all those items synergizing, and then you're really tanky, but you're also doing a lot of damage. He was one of those champions with like Udyr, Diana, etc. So all of them have mainly received nerfs over time, but a MooMoo is getting some more nerfs. So base damage per tick is every 0.5 seconds there's a tick. It was doing 10 base damage per tick. It's now going down to 7. So that is a 30% nerf. That is considerable. So don't sleep on that nerf. It is going to hurt him a bit. Aphelios. So again, I will say I've not seen too much of Elios, but I do know this champion is strong in the caveat in the hands of really good players. And that is something that a lot of people, I don't know, like people don't like, or even Riot, I think, doesn't love nowadays. Is back in the day, we're talking 5 years ago, the balanced team would basically treat League of Legends differently depending what rank they were balancing for. And you'd have a champion like the Helios that is a high skill, high reward champion. They would balance it to the top of the game because if you made him too strong, it would just take over. Riot's ethos more now is to try and make a champion viable in every single rating. It's harder to do because if you make a champion that's hard like a Helios viable and easier to play in bronze or silver or gold, then they can be pretty much broken in higher rating where people can really pull the champion off. So Elios is definitely one of those champions, and although you may not see them all the time, although I don't even know if his win rate is amazing, he's getting nerfs, because I think Riot slowly are coming back to that principle of it's hard to balance the game if we try to make everything viable in every rank. It's just impossible to do. It makes the game unhealthy. So the bonus attack damage of his passive, were obviously when you level it up, you can get to pick attack damage, attack speed, and lethality or armor pen. Attack damage is the prioritized one, clearly, and you used to get 5, 5, 10, 15, etc. per level. You're now getting 0.5 less. And I know this doesn't sound like a lot, and I've even seen Reddit threads of new players going, I look at the patch notes, I'm new to the game, does 0.5 less AD really make a difference? It's where most League players, and I've said this before, most League players would hate to admit it. Even though the game at the moment is a little bit crazy and the damage is pretty high, that's just the game in itself. But the actual balance of the game, it's actually not that bad. And I know some people might be like, what? It's really not. For 160 something champions, hundreds of items, every champion has different synergies with different items that then have to correspond or go against different champions, different items, everything. When you actually take that all into consideration, League is actually pretty balanced. It's the minute changes that they have to do to make it not seem overwhelming. And that's it. If you took this Elios and, his bonus attack damage was 5, 10, 15, 30, and if you go, right, we're going to give him 2, 4, 6, 8, instead of 5s, yeah, it's a huge nerf. This champion would never be played, because it's those little changes and little number adjustments that is what makes something viable or something too strong or something too weak. That is it. It's the tiniest of adjustments that then blows up in proportion, because the game is actually balanced. That's the thing. I know it's crazy to say, but it's true. Aurelion Soul, so as I said, pretty much the only viable mage at the moment, and guess what? He's getting nerfed. So guess what? There's practically going to be no mages to play unless the Azir buff that we can see just floating down there, unless maybe that will bring Azir back. But yeah, unfortunately, Riot and mages don't go very well. But anyway, E mana cost increased, magic damage AP ratio decreased as well. So again, his kit is obscenely strong. I'm not going to argue, by the way, he does need a nerf. But it is the unfortunate thing that Aurelion is practically the only mage that you can play well into pretty much any. Like, if you play Aurelion and there is a Kiana or a Katarina or something like that, it's okay because you're Aurelion Soul. Like, if they're leaving you in lane phase or whatever, you're going to take over the game later. He's practically the only mage that can really do that now. And yeah, he's getting nerfed. So his E, which obviously you start at level 1, and that's, the thing that gets your stacks, and you want to be doing that near enough every wave. The mana cost of it is going up in the early game, so that hurts him doing that every single wave. And then the magic damage per tick is every 0.25 seconds. It's doing the magic damage plus an ability power ratio, and that ability power ratio is going down. So he still is going to be pretty strong. What this is more doing is actually, and it's the thing that, probably mages don't need, it's hurting his lane phase the most. So his lane phase is going to be hurt by this because, again, like I said, you near enough want to use your E. Hello, Miss Maya. You want to use your E practically on every single wave to farm the stacks. Being more expensive in the early game is going to be harder to do that. So then Azir, again, one of the other hyper carry mages in League of Legends, the Q cooldown has been decreased, which is good, and the W summon rage has been increased, which is good, and the AP ratio has been increased, which is good. All of these things are very good. So the Q cooldown has gone down by 2 seconds in the early game. That's really nice. The W, a rise, so actually bringing up a soldier, your kind of bread and butter, as it were. You can have a slightly bigger range for doing that. And the magic damage is going up 5% ability power ratio, so that's better to mid to late game. This is quite nice. Like I said, is they're nerfing Aurelion, maybe Azir will be back, because Azir is one of the staple hyper carry mid laners. He always has been. And sometimes they leave him in a weakened state, like the exact thing we spoke about earlier, like a Elios. there are certain champions when they're played in the absolute upper tiers, if they're in an okay state of balance, they take over. And Azir is one of those champions. So maybe these buffs will bring him to a level that you can play and get away with him now. So that will be kind of cool to see. So maybe we'll play him in Unranked to Diamond. Again, just announcing, by the way, looking at the comment section, etc., everybody pretty much seems to be fine. Unranked to Diamond, I think I am going to get rid of the Nuzlocke effect in it, because it's just limiting the series. It's making me a little bit bored. Like, it's limiting what I actually can play. Because, like, for example, a big thing that I've been trying to do, and maybe it's noticeable, is after a patch, I'm like, right, let's play the champions that go in the patch, because people are going to want to see what the champions feel like after they've just been in a patch. And if, let's say, for example, I don't think he is, but if Azir was dead in the series, well, I can't play him. You know, he's just been buffed. I can't play Azir. It kind of feels bad. So yeah, we're going to continue the Unranked to Diamond, but the Nuzlocke is going away. And some people will like it, some people will don't. Again, we try new things occasionally, and if they don't work, it's fine. You just move to a better situation. There's no point continuing something that we're not loving, because what's the point in that? Anyway, that was it. Ivan, I'm going to be honest, I really don't care much for Ivan, so we'll just read the synopsis of what they're doing. But Q follow-up adjusted, cast range increased, now refunds cooldown when used on non-epic monsters. W adjusted, now gives allies bonus on-hit damage. Vision from spawn duration increased. Brush despawn conditions changed. E-shield now refreshes if no enemies were hit by the detonation. And Daisy stats adjusted, slam damage increased. So they are, I guess, helping Ivan, because he kind of, let's face it, is kind of pointless to play nowadays. Like, the only benefit of playing Ivan if you're doing an absolute protect the Cogmore comp or something like that. And obviously for solo queue, it is hard to like trust an AD carry that you may not know to actually carry, because if you're playing Ivan and your Cogmore isn't very good, or they don't pick Cogmore, they pick, I don't know, Jhin, it's not as effective. And with the current jungle meta, and obviously that might change because Yumu's is getting nerfed, but Ivan can't survive against Yumu's junglers in every game. They're going to murder him easily. If a Kha'Zix decides to invade an Ivan, what the hell's he going to do? So, I don't know, like, I don't think Ivan's going to be massively popular anytime soon. He's a niche champion, and I'm fine with that. And niche champions are cool, but yeah. Jinx attack speed growth decreased, so whoa, that's a big nerf. Wow. So this was a buff that they got a while ago, so in 13.5, so we're on patch 13.11, so 6 patches ago, whatever, they gave her a buff. They're just reversing that buff. So her attack speed growth was 1.36 per level. It's now going to 1. So you will feel this when you're playing Jinx. And yes, you know, she's got strong items, so it doesn't, you know, that's probably what was pushing her over the edge of strength. But yeah, you will probably feel that. That is quite a nerf. Kalista, a champion that I think, like, a lot of people kind of predicted, like, might have become really good with the on-hit builds. But I think she has difficulties surviving more than anything else. Like, her attack range is quite... Yes, she's kind of jumpy. But when an assassin can just jump on her and she just gets one shot, well, she has to risk herself being kind of close to a fight a lot of the time. So her base health is going up, so again, tankiness. Health regeneration is going up, so that helps the lane trades. Health regeneration growth is also going up. Attack damage, though, in the base is going down, and attack damage growth is going down. So they think her damage output is probably quite good, but she's squishy and she's vulnerable, so she gets one shot quite easily. So that's what they seem to be doing. And then they, I think, are also moving, like, the damage from base stats, they're putting it into her passive and abilities and stuff. So the damage delta on hit was 90% of your total AD. It's just now 100%. Okay, so that's probably why they're doing that. That's a 10% buff to this, and that's technically less than a 10% nerf, technically. Q pierce physical damage, also 5% more AD, so you're also gaining damage from that too. And then the rend flattening out the cooldown to 8 seconds at all ranks. So that is where her normal rank 5 used to be. So that's really nice for early and mid game. And then the physical damage per stack, I think is going technically down by base. Yeah, it is. It's going down by base per stack, but is going up per your AD. And you can do it more often throughout most of the game until obviously level 5. Yeah, I'd say that's probably quite good. It's more for scaling. You know, she's going to be much stronger in mid to late game with AD items. Her early game obviously might not be amazing, but I don't think this champion is supposed to be early game. And that was what always confused me. Like a little while ago, we are talking probably 6 months ago now, but I always thought of Kalista as a late game hyper carry, and then my whole Twitch chat, whenever there was a Kalista in the game, I'm going, oh, you know, she shouldn't win lane. My whole Twitch chat was like, oh, she's a lane bully now. And I'm like, huh? Like, it's always weirded me out that she's become a lane bully. To me, Kalista has always been, or should be at least, like a late game hyper carry. And maybe that's what they're turning her back into, to like get up to the range. And obviously you're never going to get there, but like Cogmore and stuff like that, Vayne, that's maybe what they want her to be. So Reksai, so passive refresh rate increased, heal increased as well. Can you see this? No, you can't. It's cut off. Sorry. The unborrowed cooldown decreases with rank. That's really nice. And buff duration decreased. Attacks refresh buff duration. Buff no longer ends prematurely when underground. And borrowed vision duration increased and W adjusted. Whoa. Damn. Reksai was one of the non-assassin champions that was bound to old Prowler's Claw. I'm going to be honest. Non-assassin champions with Prowlers, Reksai was an assassin. Like, just straight up. Like, with old Prowlers and the build that Reksai used to do, that was an assassin. It was a non-assassin champion that became an assassin because of items. But anyway, so took a big hit with its removal. I will say, I don't necessarily think that's true. I played with a Reksai player a couple weeks ago when the patch happened, and obviously, yes, they couldn't buy Prowlers anymore. They were just buying, again, MooMoos, and maybe just the item was broken, but they were destroying. And I even looked at their match history, and they are overall doing really, really well. So it doesn't seem that they've lost that much, but I think what Riot are trying to do is, again, they're taking Burst away, and they're moving her to be a more durable fighter. A lot of Reksai players, and it is worth saying, you know, and that's the thing when they get, you know, they let things happen with items a lot of the time. A lot of Reksai mains are now assassin Reksai players. That's the way that they've played Reksai for over a year. That is Reksai to them. They're going to probably not love, they're moving away from assassin and they're going to fighter. They're probably really not going to like that. But anyway, so basic attacks now refresh the duration of Queen's Wrath. The reveal duration's going up. Unborrowed quality of life. Cooldown is going much better cooldown for the Q as well. The refresh rate is every 1 second. So like that when you're borrowed, when you're seeing obviously where people are, that's going to happen more often, which is nice. So yeah, we might see Reksai a lot in this patch, but in a different way. Renekton, much similar to Reksai, was a non-assassin champion that was not, I wouldn't say bound to Prowlers, but you'd see a lot of Renektons build it. And it's because Renekton already had mobility with his E, the double E. But then if on top of having that, Prowlers gave him incredible burst, but also more mobility. You could, if you were like playing Ezreal, who has E, Shift, and Flash, you couldn't get away from a Renekton. Like, he has double E, so that's your Shift and Flash, and you're like, oh, I got away. And then he Prowlers is on top of you. You're like, what? You just cannot get away from him. So, losing it, they need to give him some help. Which, again, Renekton's been a problematic champion for a while, because in solo queue, they've had to nerf him like mad, because he was popular in pro play. So the cooldown of his Slice and Dice is going down. So again, that's his mobility spell. And obviously he lost mobility with Prowlers active. So the cooldown was 18 to 14. It's now 16 to 12. 2-second buff up every rank. That's pretty good. And then the ultimate was 120 seconds all ranked. It is now 120, 180. And then the magic damage per tick is going up. So some pretty nice buffs for Renekton there. Like that lane phase, 2 seconds extra. He's a lane bully, so giving a lane bully like Renekton 2 seconds quicker every time that he can engage on you is pretty nice. And yes, obviously he lost Prowler's Claw, but that's not bad. I don't know if this is a big enough buff to kind of bring him back, if that makes sense. But if you already play Renekton, this is a nice buff. It's kind of like yeah, we got rid of Prowlers, enjoy a bit of a buff. And that's fine. And I'm completely fine with Riot doing those buffs because that makes sense, which is healthy. Whew, this is a champion you don't see very often. Twisted Fate. W cooldown decrease no longer decreases with rank. So just letting him have W more often. The problem with Twisted Fate is, because in theory, obviously, the meta in mid is very roam heavy. Wouldn't that make sense for Twisted Fate? Like, he's a roaming mage. He's so individually weak. No. Because, like, if you're playing a hyperscaling mage in mid lane, Aurelion, Vigar, something like that, a lot of the time, yeah, you can't roam as much as the meta roaming mid laners, but you will eventually beat them. You'll eventually outscale them. You'll eventually take over, as it were. Like, if you leave an Aurelion just a free farm, you will be punished for that. Two things. One, Twisted Fate will never really get enough strength to beat something like a Zed or a Kiana or a Talon or something like that. He just won't have enough strength. He just doesn't. And then his roams are... You're basically going to be roaming as Twisted Fate a lot of the time, the same time your lane opponent is roaming, and that lane opponent is arguably going to be stronger than you in the roam. So if you're looking for a roaming playstyle, there's just no point picking Twisted Fate when the meta mid laners do it a better job. That's kind of his biggest problem. Yes, this will help. 6 seconds on all rank is nice, but it's just not enough. Like, it's just really not enough. But yeah. Items. Ardent Sensor is getting flattened out. So it was 15% early based on your level, 30% late. It's just 20% overall. So again, it's currently the highest win rate second item purchase for Enchanter supports, which goes against our goals of promoting support item diversity. Again, I thought they gave up with the item diversity thing, but apparently they're still wanting that for some reason. Dustblade Adrakthar. So this one was underperforming compared to just how overpowered Youmuu's was. So, well, actually, obviously, Dustblade is not a mythic anymore. But anyway, is it a mythic? No. Is it? Yeah, it is. Maybe? I think it is. I don't remember. So the... Oh, no, it is. I think it's the way that instead of obviously making you invisible, you become untargetable instead, which again is still a very unhealthy mechanic. But anyway, so the bonus ability damage used to be 0 to 15% based on targets missing health. It's now 0 to 20%, so a 5% potential buff to this item for that. And then the maximum bonus damage health threshold was 20% remaining health. It's now 30% remaining health. Again, I kind of know what the nerf to Youmuu's is. It's a big nerf, which is needed. This might bring the item to the level of that now with also the nerf, and this is beginning a buff, but we'll see. Echoes of Helia, passive healing per shard is going down, and the passive damage per shard is going down. Again, a lot of the new items that they kind of released were just too strong, which a lot of people were saying when they got released. They just were stat-wise very, very healthy, so they're just toning them down. Galeforce, I will say, and this would be interesting to hear your opinion on it, I have heard so many people unhappy that Galeforce is still in the game, because again, they removed Prowlers because Riot themselves admitted it was an unhealthy thing to play against. It wasn't a fun experience to play against something building Prowlers. And then they keep Galeforce in, which is practically the same item, just reshifted into mainly an AD carry item. But there are still non-AD carries buying Galeforce. I've even seen AD Scions, obviously not wanting to let go of having Prowlers. They're now buying Galeforce, some of them. They just don't want to let go of that free dash and zombie form. I think they're always going to have a problem when you're giving a champion level mechanic like a dash to an item. It's just so powerful. So, despite popular opinion heading into this patch, it turns out Galeforce is indeed strong. Even with the opportunity cost of Infinity Edge and Quickblade, we're walking back some of the preemptive buffs it got in 13.10, specifically targeting its stronger synergies with Yasuo and Yone, which obviously those champions also got buffs individually as well. They got hotfix buffs. So the active damage is going down, the base damage is staying the same, but the critical strike damage is going down by 50. And obviously with the Wind Brothers, they do very well with crit, unsurprisingly. And then the maximum execution damage is also going down by 10%. So yeah, it's being nerfed, but people will probably still not like that this item is still in the game. Kraken Slayer, so crit marksmen are dealing too much damage in the long engagements, so we're switching Kraken Slayer to do physical damage instead of magic. People said this literally, and I think I even said it. Why are you making all these items do magic damage? It's an absolute nightmare to balance. We all said this. Riot got rid of hybrid damage and hybrid builds because it was impossible to balance, and then they just bring it back. It was the weirdest decision to me. It's like whoever made these decisions either didn't play League back when there was proper hybrid builds or completely forgot. It was a nightmare to balance that, and that's literally what just happened again. When you're giving so many powerful items to like AD carries, or like obviously back in the day it was like Katarina, Jax, and Kayle, you can't build against it. You know, it's unhealthy. If the AD carry's getting fed, I'll build armor. Actually, all their items, yes, they're fed with AD, but they're actually doing a lot of magic damage too. You can't build enough against it, and they just take over. It's hard. So they're changing the damage type, unsurprisingly, back to physical for Kraken, and the damage of it, although, you know, you might be like, oh, it's getting buffs in terms of the damage, and you might be confused by that, but the reason why it's getting buffs in terms of the damage, 5% more AD, more ability power ratio, and more just absolute damage here, is because you then can actually build armor against the AD. Armor is effective again. That's the point. So yes, it's fine that it's being turned to physical. It's fine that technically the damage is going up because you now actually can build against it efficiently. So that's fine. Moonstone chain heal is going up, and single heal is going up. So it just has been weaker in comparison to the others. Quickblades, so yeah, it's just fallen behind. I haven't really seen many AD carries by Quickblades. If you're buying not the other ones, most of them are just buying Infinity Edge. So the attack damage is going up. The recipe is changing, but the attack damage is going up by 5. The ability house, however, is going down. The cooldown, though, is going up to 15. And then the mythic passive, they're changing it from ability haste to attack damage, which I think is better. So you will be gaining a lot more just absolute attack damage with buying this item. So that is a nice buff to that. On hit damage from Hurricane is going down. Again, unsurprising that we're going to see on hit damage coming down. When, you know, last patch, 4 or 5 of the items introduced all gave on hit damage, and you could basically buy all of these items with then a Rage Blade that then amplifies on hit damage. It's unsurprising that that was a bit unhealthy. So you're just going to see the nerf of all the on hit damage. Again, a lot of people could have told you this when the patch came out, but who knows? Maybe the Riot's limited testing probably didn't show them enough. So that it's being halved. So that is literally a 50% nerf to this damage. The on-hit damage was 30, it's now 15. Static Shiv, energized damage is going up in the same ratio, but yeah, it's just going up. And the damage to minions modifier is also going up. I will say I have been a bit confused by this because they're saying like Shiv launched a bit underpowered. I've seen so many AD carries be rushing it. That it just gives them decent wave clear and it gives them time, and that's the bigger thing. I've seen Jinxes buy it, I've seen Varuses buy it, and it's not bad wave clear, and it's going to be better now wave clear. So if you are one of those scaling on hit crit champions now, AD carries, it's giving them more time, because when their wave clear is so good, you can't get dove as much, and that's their vulnerability. And obviously they have said like Vigars are buying this. You know, there's a new build that I think I need to try. It's a static Shiv Lichbane build. It's all about auto attacks and it does pretty damn well. I need to give that a go because it does look quite funny, and it's not really trolling. It's not cheesing. You're buying an item that's doing ability power. You're playing Vigar. Why not? So we might give that a go, as it might even be stronger now. Stormraiser is doing good. So they're toning that down, less attack damage and less change, 25 to 15. So there we go. So MooMoo's the big winner, let's say, of all the item changes. So the biggest thing, the ability haste, yes, is going down. And the only thing I will say is, for the life of me, I don't understand why this item didn't get a hotfix nerf. Yasuo and Yone got hotfix buffs. So obviously they can change numbers. We all know hotfix buffs and nerfs exist. This item took over last patch. Every jungler was a Yumu's jungler. Even I've seen Rivens by Yumu's. I've seen AD carries by Yumu's. Everything turned into Yumu's. You'd see like 4 or 5 of people buying this item every game because of how crazy it was. And why was it so crazy? You got 30 plus lethality from one item at the beginning of the game. So the item itself, so bonus lethality and maximum stacks was 8, obviously, which is the beginning of the game, up to 20. And then the actual item itself, and I don't actually know if they're nerfing that now, because I thought they were. Maybe they've reverted that. But the base lethality on this item, I think, is 18. So you got 18 lethality, which is high for a single item, and then up to another 20. So you could get like 38 lethality for one item. But even in the early game, again, at maximum stacks that you got from movement, etc., I believe, 18 plus even 8, if you got this item really, really early, you still were getting 25 plus lethality from one item, or whatever it is, 24. It's really strong, 26. And as you can see, the nerf is really big. So it went from 8 bonus lethality at maximum stacks to 20. It's now 3 to 12. That is a huge nerf. And also, the distance per stack is going up. So this is going to take you roughly 20% slower to generate the stacks. And you're getting less lethality per stack. That just shows you how powerful this item was. It's been completely nerfed in every single way, apart from the actual base stats for lethality. But you're getting less ability haste. You're getting less bonus lethality by a considerable amount. And it takes longer to even get that lethality, even though it's less. Again, it still weirds me out that they let that go on for 2 weeks. But anyway. And obviously the Ornn version 2. All right, so this is a new thing that is controversial. And obviously, I didn't know it was actually happening this patch, but I'm aware of it. It's basically making, and why they're probably doing the Ivern update or help a little bit, it's making Ivern completely useless and completely redundant. One of Ivern's best features is he could share buffs. So if you're playing jungle, if you're playing mid, and you're like, oh, dude, I really wish I got blue. It's rarer nowadays in League, for whatever reason, that junglers sometimes just don't give buffs out. But with an Ivern, oh, we both get a blue. That's now happening to everybody. So buff sharing has been pretty similar since the dawn of League. You get your first 2 or 3 buffs, and then your mid laner and AD carry start thinking they deserve them. Can you believe it? They're never those laners. In its current state, the pressure for junglers to give up their buffs to laners at their own expense, which also creates some social friction and coordination challenges. We've all been in games where people are like, I'm not giving you your buff, and it creates that little toxicity tension. So our goal with the introduction of buff sharing is to reduce the feel bad moments, etc., etc. So buff wisps: when a jungler kills red or blue buff, their actual full names obviously are there, while their smite is fully upgraded, they will still receive the camp's buff, but in addition, a buff wisp will be dropped at the camp's spawn point. It's the Ivern thing. An ally can pick it up by walking within the radius, the Ivern thing, of 1 minute of the camp before it disappears. So you don't need to smite it. It just has to. The smite has to be fully upgraded. So the 1200 smite, that's what's needed. But I'm not the jungler. If a player that is not the jungle kills the red or blue sentinel, but the jungler smite is fully upgraded, it will drop a wisp, but it is only visible to the allied jungler. So both of you will get one. I'm not sure what I feel of this. Obviously, it's going to make the game, what do I say, higher tempo, because more buffs are now going to be happening, 2 buffs at a time when your smite is upgraded. It's more smite, there's more buffs available, so if you kill somebody, they're more likely to have a buff. That increases the tempo of the game. Again, all this stuff, tempo of the game, the damage is high. Obviously, it is kind of going back to what they used to be, very high tempo, very high damage League of Legends. The durability update is pretty much reverted by now, even in tempo. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Honestly, I can't really form an opinion, because on one hand, when I'm playing mid lane, yeah, it's going to feel a lot better that I do actively get blue buffs consistently now. But I still don't know if it's healthy for League. It's probably going to help mages, because that's the thing. A lot of these roaming assassins aren't as reliant on getting blue buffs. but a mage really is. So it probably will help mages a bit because they're going to get blue buffs where they normally didn't. But I think I'm going to have to play on the patch for like a week or so to really get the feeling, if that makes sense. Because I honestly don't know of how I'm actually going to feel about it. ARM adjustments, don't care. Clash, I will hopefully be playing Clash this weekend. I'll obviously see if the Clash team is available. Bug fixes, and yeah, upcoming skins. But there we go. Overall, I'd say it is pretty much kind of expected. A lot of nerfs to AD carry items that were overperforming. Nerf, thankfully, to Youmuu's. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that massively is standing out to me that's either missing or too strong at the moment. Because, yeah, a lot of the things... Oh, maybe Hecarim. And maybe Hecarim is the only thing that is standing out. But I know part of that Hecarim's now strength was tied to Youmuu's. But it has been a bit boring that Hecarim has been actively in every single solo queue game, it feels, for like the last 6 months. So maybe Hecarim himself deserves individual nerfs, but maybe the Youmuu's will be enough to take care of that. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's going to be it. If you guys enjoyed the patch note breakdown, do throw a like on it, throw a comment, throw a subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace. Restore our glory to live forever. Bring down the dark regime. I know how to unleash eternal power.